Hey everyone, it's Nick from Nick's Crossing, and I'm upstairs in the attic today, and I'm going to show you guys what I've been working on since August. Hey everyone, here she is. And been working on this layout since August of this year, 2020, and it's been a learning process for sure. Doing all the bench work on my own and finding a way to store stuff underneath, as well as keeping an open space so I can get to the back windows here, and just making this space work to 100% of what I wanted to do and enjoy the trains safely and efficiently, so I can get back behind if something derails or there's a problem on a switch or get to wiring. But yeah, it's definitely been a learning process. And as you can see here, I'm using the old school tubular track, and this is an 042 turnout or 042 turn compared to the 036 radius turns up top. And I just found it be a little bit more affordable at this time. I have nothing really against the fast track stuff or the Atlas track. It's just more affordable for my current situation. The fast track looks great. It's very expensive for me right now. I know the switches can run from $80 to $100 compared to these switches here. I believe they're about $25 a piece. And up top, these switches run for about $20 a piece. And I actually have two of those on this side and then one on the other. And it's actually, I think it's an 022 pair. And after some minor work, I mean, they work beautifully. And they also were being tested recently with this Pensy heavyweight. So I know the layout's a mess, but I can actually show you guys what's going on the update. So right now I'm working on building a mountain or some mountainscaping here to cover up all this wood bench work. It went kind of crazy. Some of the measurements were off, and I kind of had to rinker tinker with some of the things. Then underneath, well, actually these beams were cut sideways by mistake. My one of my cutting tools fell off, and it just cut everything on an angle. But I'm dealing with it. It's gonna be covered up with facade here, and I'm gonna stack the foam up, and then probably find some way to maybe put like a plaster face to it and then paint it all up. And I have all the scenery stuff ready to go. But that's going to be all this side, and then I have the tunnel cutouts waiting for me on this side. Yeah, there's one of them. It's I believe they're MTH cutouts. They're really nice. They're plastic, but you can actually paint them, make them look really nice. And here I have the 042 turn to these switches here for like a passing track. I'm going to isolate this rail so I can turn it off with a switch, so I can like park a train here and have my other trains running conventionally on this outer loop, and then I can switch them out. Up top, it's a loop back track with these 022 switches here. And I was actually recently testing out with my K4. I believe this is a PS1 or a Protosound 1 MTH K4 engine. That works really nice, and it loves these switches. I mean, they just tackles it with no problem at all. It's also an 022 switch, with the one behind it's also an 022. And these two inner switches are original post-war. They're built like tanks. I mean, I was surprised at the construction, the complexity of them. And after a few minutes of work and some soldering, I got them working beautifully. And then behind it is actually a Chinese remake of the 022. It works really nice. It's not the same. There's just something different about it, especially in the plastic. The plastic seems to be a little bit lighter. It's kind of interesting. Oh yeah, also my dwarf signal here is wired up to this switch here, just to show the direction. Same with this gantry is wired up. And I wanted to have this gantry to work to show if there's a train on the track or not, just doing like a block section, but for some reason it just never came about. Like I wanted to do a double line at the bottom, but I ran out of space with the 042 turns, and this table's only 4 feet wide. It was really pressing for space, so I couldn't do the double line. But what I'm actually going to do is put another loop in here where all this stuff is now, and all this is going to move. I just wanted it to be like a placeholder to see how much stuff I actually had, see if I could use it. But yeah, I'm going to build an 036 loop in here to go around wherever this golf station is and come back. So just as a side note, I ended up building this accessory activation track from scratch, just using a tubular rail, and I filed them down and took a Dremel and filed down these leads for the post-war or any type of activation freight car. And even I guess the decoupler would work too on some of the post-war stuff. But I mean, this thing works great. You just have to make sure you file them down, use a Dremel, make them nice and smooth, and they won't chew up contact pieces of the cars. So right now, because I'm in the testing stages of this garden, I have this MRC dual power system hooked up, so I can run the top track and the lower track. And I use these awesome like wire splices. So there's solder free. You just crimp them over. They're kind of a hassle to work with. You need pair of pliers or something to close up the gap, but they clean up really nice. And then I actually just use these eye hooks to organize all my wiring, and everything's color coded. I mean, that's the name of the game. You always want to color code your stuff and run multiple leads so you don't have dead spots in your track. But here, like these are also terminal clips here, just a different manufacturer. But yeah, if you guys want to see, I'm going to do a small run day here. Run the K4 up top with some passenger cars, and at the bottom I'm going to save the Santa Fe for later, but I'll actually put something post-war on the bottom track. But I want to thank you guys for watching so far and hope you enjoy it, and just stick with me and we'll see where this thing goes. I mean, the sky's the limit with trains, and I mean, it's my first garden, so I plan to go all out. So guys, for today's little run day here, I'm going to use my Erie Alco AA set in its entirety of cars. This engine's been a great runner for me, and I mean, for post-war, these things were built like tanks, and they're meant to be used and played with, run into walls. I mean, just enjoyed. So this is one of my favorite sets, and I thought it'd be appropriate to do this for my first run day I've ever recorded. So this engine was built between the years of 1952 and 1954, and I actually have a variation B on the tracks today, and it's a variation B just because of the reinforcement from motor heat that Lionel rebuilt these engines. The variation A has a smoother cap on top, doesn't have that riveted pattern behind the little horn, and those engines would melt just from the tremendous heat coming off the Pullmore motors, because these things do a lot of work. But this engine's loaded with features. I mean, it has a horn, operational couplers, magnet traction. It also has the lighted A unit, that's a dummy unit, and the powered A unit. It looks amazing. It can pull a ton of cars. It's just a great set. So the cars I'm using with this set today came with another 2032 Alco AA set that was also an Erie. And what happened was the power unit had a ton of wear in it, and I'm assuming someone left the battery in for the horn. So these units use a D-cell or an old dry cell battery to power the horn circuit, and it's a little bell alarm horn in there, I guess, and it just kind of honks. It's still really cool, but someone left the battery in, and what that did was it put battery acid all over the internals. But the crazy thing is that the motor and the E unit and the headlights, everything else still worked. It just needed to be clean, thoroughly clean and detoxed from the acid. I did have to repaint the frame. I did have to repaint all the wheel chassis. I think I also did some rewiring just because it was like completely roached. But I was impressed. I mean, these things were just built to run and run and run. But I'll show that variation another day. For today, I'm showing you my original AA set that I haven't done any cosmetic work to at all. It actually still has all the original rubber stamping, all the original decals. I think the only work I've done to this engine, I think one of the couplers was cut on purpose. I don't know if someone cut it just because they didn't understand what it did, or didn't know how to repair it, or they just didn't want the couplers to open up on certain pieces of track. So here are the cars that came with the 2032. I have Lionel Line's lighted caboose, the Sunoco tanker car, this livestock car here, my gondola car, and then the 2032. these cars never let me down either. I mean, they have these die-cast trucks. Everything's just metal, except the cars themselves. I mean, they're tough plastic, but I mean, these things are just meant to run and run and run. So up top here, I actually have my MTH 1361 K4 engine. I believe it's the Broadway Limited sound program that runs through it. And it's PS1. You can kind of play around with the horn and bell to get different sounds out of it. I have to look up how to actually program those sounds or get them out of the engine. But the thing's loaded with features. It has a great smoking unit, great lights, great pulling motor. But today I'm pulling these Pensy heavyweight cars that came with my GG1 set that I bought, I want to say about 10 years ago. It's a semi-scale Lionel rehash of the post-war GG1. Actually has the dual pull-more motors in it and everything. A little finicky of an engine, but I'll definitely have that on the track soon to show you guys. Alrighty guys, all aboard. For joining me on this layout update and little mini run day. I hope to show you guys all the other trains I have and show you the progress of the little layout here. By the time I post another video on this, I should have that inner rail completed. I actually hope to work on that tomorrow and get that rolling. So I have 3 trains rolling at the same time, which is awesome. And I'm going to start experimenting with different light techniques to put in my buildings. But yeah, if you guys want to stay tuned, just subscribe to my channel, throw me a like. Love to hear your comments. Maybe you guys had these engines growing up or you still have them to this day. I'd love to hear about it. But everyone out there, please be safe, and I hope to see you guys in next videos. Thanks.